Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ask the Experts. Thank you so much for being here. This is a packed house and I love it. Thank you for being here. I'm Austin Regival. I'm the Vice President of the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce. This is our second session of the year. We had about a 6-month gap there, but thanks to First Security Bank, our heroes, this program is back. I hope you visited the table back there because they have an awesome giveaway today. It's a Beats Pill speaker. It's super good. Make sure you get your info in their little sign up box there so you have a chance to win. That has to be top 3 best giveaways we've ever had at the Ask the Experts. So thank you very much to Kristen and Anthony. Before we get started, I wanted to go around the room and ask everyone their name, where they work, and their job title. Let's start with you.
My name is Adriana. I work for the Goodwill Employment Connection Center, and I'm the Mission Services Lead Coordinator.
My name is Michael. I work for the Goodwill Employment Connection Center as well, and I'm the Mission Services Manager.
Hi, I'm Brenda, and I'm the manager for Bank CDA.
I'm Smith. I'm also with Bank CD and I'm a commercial banker.
Alicia Greenaway, I'm with Ben Franklin CAC. I'm their HR director.
Thank you for being here.
I'm Brandy. I'm with UGM and support staff.
Cool.
I'm Katie. I'm also with UGM. I'm the women's house director.
Nathan Gill, Case Management Director at the UGM.
My name is Juan. I work at the UGM on the front desk supervisor.
Great.
My name is Mike. I work for UGM also.
Yeah, we have the team here. I love it.
Guess what?
Peggy Sandberg, I'm the Food Services Director at the UGM. Last one I promise.
Okay.
I'm also at the UGM and I'm the medical coordinator there.
That's great. Thank you all for coming. That's really cool.
Rick Pullen. I'm with HAPO, not UGM. And I manage Clearwater.
I'm great starting the HAPO train. I'm Chad Yost with HAPO and I'm in community engagement.
I'm Sydney O'Neill with HAPO, and I am also with Community Engagement. I'm an intern this summer.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Travis Sturgis, I'm with HAPO and I'm the finance manager.
I'm Christopher DJ Goodfun. I'm chief strategist at Goodfun Consulting.
Hello, I'm Sarah Howe, Philanthropy Officer for Columbia Ability Alliance.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Garcia. I manage the Key Freedom Park Library with Mid Columbia Libraries. Oh, great.
Yeah. Josh Deluder. I'm with BBSI.
Matt with Peak Networks.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm with P&G and North Local.
Dan Robinson, Robinson Tech.
My name is Billy Parker. I'm the general manager at Columbia Center Mall.
Hi.
Tanya with HAPO, Asset Recovery Manager. Great. Brittany also with HAPO, and then I'm the Richland Financial Center Manager.
Great. Thank you all for being here. How about you two back there?
I am Anthony Hunter. I'm the customer service lead at First Security Bank.
Kristen Edwards, First Security Bank.
Awesome. Okay. Anthony, I already gave you a shout out earlier. Again, thanks so much to First Security Bank for being here and being our sponsor and allowing this program to continue. Anthony has a few words for everybody. If you want to come up here and let's give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Just want to first say thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. This is a great opportunity. Just representing First Security Bank, I'd like to say that we have proudly served communities throughout the Pacific Northwest since 1907. We're honored to sponsor today's Ask the Experts event. As a community bank, we're focused on understanding what matters to the people around us, businesses we serve, and helping them achieve their goals. At First Security, we believe that banking is more than just a transaction. It's about building relationships. It's about delivering exceptional service and helping our customers achieve what matters most to them. At the heart of everything we do is a belief that strong relationships create a strong community. So whether you're growing a business, buying a home, or just looking for a good financial partner that you can trust, First Security is committed to providing honest banking, exceptional service, and a relationship that you can trust. So we invite you to come by our branch, meet our Tri-Cities team, and then enjoy today's Ask the Experts event. Thank you.
Fantastic. Again, make sure you get in on the giveaway back there. Now to our speakers. Cindy Goulet is a longtime Tri-Cities restaurateur with over 30 years of experience building and operating successful businesses. She owns 3 Richland restaurants, and you probably know them and love them. Three Eye Fish Kitchen and Bar, Lulu Craft Bar and Kitchen, and Perch Cantina. Her hands-on experience leading teams in the demanding restaurant industry has given her a practical perspective on what makes employees stay, grow, and take ownership in their work. Cindy graduated from WSU with a degree in hospitality management. This is Cindy. And then to Cindy's right is John Sortland. He's a retired business executive, having spent the last 30+ years as a chief financial officer at several high-growth venture capital-backed startup technology companies in the Seattle area. John moved to Kennewick in 2024 upon becoming the majority owner of the Tri-City Americans, and he currently spends about 75% of his time in the Tri-Cities. John is a lifelong hockey fan. We were talking earlier. He really is kind of like the biggest. He is the hockey fan that was able to buy a team, and it's so cool. He has a passionate love for the Western Hockey League and is very knowledgeable about the league. Mr. Sortland is excited for the opportunity to help drive improved performance and growth for the Americans, both on and off the ice. He's a magna cum laude graduate of Western Washington University and earned his MBA from Columbia University. John and his wife, Grace, have 2 young adult children, Trevor and Katarina. John, you're starting, so let's give him a round of applause.
Okay, so first of all, I think this is called Ask the Experts. I'm not sure I consider myself an expert. I'm not really an academic or anything. But I have spent quite a bit of time over the last couple of years thinking about culture. When I went through the process of buying the Tri-City Americans, and it's sort of kind of my long-term kind of what I've learned in my 30-year career is that the culture of an organization is just extremely important in driving the outcome and the success that you want to achieve. You do that by driving the culture. And this presentation, by the way, is one that I prepared for our employees, for our players, both on the hockey side and the business side, plus our players. So there's a couple little things in here that are kind of unique to our team. But I thought I would start here by giving you my favorite business quote of all time from Peter Drucker is culture eats strategy for breakfast. He wrote those words sometime in the 1980s. When all management consulting firms are all worried about strategy and business tactics, Peter Drucker's big contribution to the business literature was that a culture of an organization is equally, and in fact, many times more important than just strategy and what your product is and the other factors that go into running a business. So what exactly is culture? And I'm going to have to read this because I can't really recite it off the top of my head, but a series of beliefs, attitudes, values, and ethics that determine how individuals at different levels interact with one another and how they behave with respect to the organization. I think we all probably have some sort of innate sense of what kind of culture means, but it's kind of, the way we do things around here. And the most important thing to realize is that every single group of individuals, of human beings, has a culture. A culture will develop and evolve one way or another whenever you have a group of human beings together, over some length of time. So a family has a culture, a sports team has a culture, every business, every company, every group of human beings over time develops sort of the way we do things around here, develops a culture. The other thing to say too is there's really no right or wrong answer as to what a culture should be. There are successful companies that have a very, customer centric, Nordstrom, for example. There are many companies that have very customer centric cultures. Other companies have cutthroat cultures where, the executives are pitted against one another internally. And there's just all sorts of different types of cultures that evolve, like in individual family units, you know, the mom and the dad drive the culture of the family with the children. And so you have parents that are, you know, that are strict disciplinarians, you have parents that are soft and lenient. And it's, but no matter what, that family, that company, that organization is going to have a culture. And what determines that culture more than anything else is, in the next slide down below, is the observed behavior of the leaders of that organization. And it's been my observation that oftentimes leaders of organizations aren't really even aware of that. Current enterprise I'm involved with, the Tri-City Americans, have been, you know, run by, you know, an individual who I think was pretty much totally unaware that his behavior drove sort of the culture of the organization as it's been over the last few decades. But there is a culture with the Tri-City Americans, just like there's a culture in, you know, every single organization that you guys work for. And that culture gets influenced by many, many different things. But the observed behavior of the leaders, and that doesn't just mean the CEO or, you know, the mom in the family or the dad in the family or whoever at the very top, it filters down. And the other important thing to understand is that if you consciously think about it in advance, you can drive the culture, you can build the culture that you want to achieve. You just have to do it with some forethought and make sure that you understand it's not just your words as the leader of the organization that will drive the culture that evolves, but it's what people see, the observed behavior of you as the leader of the organization. The last one here, like, what is C's and A's? So this was a leftover from a presentation to our hockey staff. That's the captains and alternate captains, the players of the Tri-City Americans. Every team has one captain and 2 or 3 alternate captains. And if the culture that I and we are trying to drive with the Tri-City Americans, if I set the example for our general manager, he sets the example for the coach sets the example for the coaching staff, and then that filters all down to the players themselves, starting with the captain, the alternate captains, and then down to the players themselves. I'm going to just go super quick past this. So this is all pretty, I'll just read these real quickly because I'll get on to the last ones. I'm supposed to do this in 15 minutes, but I mean, most of this is fairly intuitive. Just the benefits of having a good and positive culture, promotes trust, accountability, and motivation, sets the tone for how, well, players, that's because this is designed for the Tri-City Americans, but I think you could put the word employees in there and it would mean the exact same thing, but sets the tone for how players interact, communicate, and support one another. Creates resiliency to help the team overcome adversity, establishes a continuous long-term positive and self-sustaining environment. I don't think any of this is rocket science. I think it's fairly intuitive, but just something to kind of highlight of why it's a good idea to think about the type of culture that you want, and think about the key tenets that you want to create. Document those, write those down, and then make sure that you live those so that the people below you see how you're behaving and they will model that behavior themselves and drive the culture of the organization. On the other hand, a negative culture can breed conflict, selfishness, resentment, and ultimately impede team performance, regardless of the talent level of the individual players. Again, this was, I sort of took this from a presentation that we've delivered to the hockey staff, but I think it's you can easily apply this not just to a hockey team, but to any sort of organization, a company or a nonprofit or a family or a sports team, any group of people that the whole concept of culture applies to. You know, I'll go real quick through this next slide here. There it is. Okay, yeah. This is just I've sort of been talking about this, but just creating a positive culture. So first of all, decide, you know, have some forethought into what you want that culture to be. I spent about a year preparing to purchase the Tri-City Americans, doing due diligence and negotiating the deal and getting league approval and all this kind of stuff. But I spent a lot of that time in 2023 and 2024, just really thinking about the culture. And you'll see on the next slide what the key tenets of the Tri-City Americans culture that I'm trying to drive. But I spent a lot of time thinking about it and documenting it and use, so we have a roadmap to use over the next, as long as I'm involved with the team and help driving a different culture and ultimately driving better results. The organization, as I've said repeatedly, the organization's leaders absolutely must lead by example, establish open lines of communications, provide feedback and recognize achievements, address conflicts promptly and with consistency. There's conflicts in any organization. I'm sure most of you guys manage people, that's how it is. And it's part of the job in any organization, any family, any company, any sports team is managing conflicts. I'm going to go to the last slide because this is where I really, let's see, I'm wrong. Did I go the wrong way? Oops, sorry. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
These are the 5 elements of our culture. And it doesn't have to be the 5 tenets or elements of anybody else's culture, but it's the culture that given who I am and kind of what I'm trying to achieve, these are the core 5 tenets. And sometimes I've actually changed this presentation a little and kind of split one of these in 2 and call it 6. But these 5 or 6 tenets are the ones that I'm really trying to drive within the Tri-City Americans. And this is both on the business side. This is for our sales and marketing staff, our ticket sellers, our game presentation people. It's on the business side, and equally important, it's the coaching staff, the training staff, the equipment manager, and then have it filter all the way down, especially to the players. But number 1, the team supersedes the individual, especially in a sport like hockey, and any team sport, really. I mean, golf or tennis, those are individual sports, and maybe teamwork isn't as important. But most team sports, individuals can't do it all themselves. At age 9, a hockey player can take the puck and one end of the ice, skate through everybody and score. But by the time the players are 10, 12, 14, 16, and now when they're, young adult hockey players that we have with the Tri-City Americans, they can't do that anymore. And they have to work together as a team. And the team has to supersede the individual. Number 2, and this is especially true in hockey and sports, there's no substitute for hard work. Perseverance, relentlessness, that's the way that we want to play the game. And the Everett Silvertips, they just won the Western Hockey League Championship last spring. We're hoping to be able to emulate and do that ourselves one of these days. But probably the number 1 ingredient that Everett has had over the last few years is really just a culture of relentlessness. And that means that they go out and they find players that just have an insatiable work ethic, even if they're not as skilled, even if they're not as big. What they've really looked for is players with resiliency, perseverance that will work their tails off no matter what, shift in and shift out. And that's what we're trying to do here with the Tri-City Americans. Number 3, treat individuals with dignity and respect and build a collaborative culture where everyone has their opinions heard, but that doesn't mean that everyone has their opinions acted on. So at the end of the day, the head coach has to make, the final decision on what the lines are going to be. But I want our head coach, Jody Hull, to talk before every game with assistant coaches and get their feedback and their input on the practice plans, on the lineups, on the tactical part of playing the game. One individual can just sort of dictate everything, but the culture that I want the Tri-City Americans to have is one of collaboration and respect, where the coach relies on his assistant coaches. The GM consults with the head scout and the coach. The VP of sales and marketing asks the opinion of the ticket sales director and the game day, the game experience manager, and then the other people on her team. I'm almost to the end. I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit long.
You're good, John.
Okay.
You're good.
Number 4, and I've split this kind of into 2, commitment to excellence, because attention to detail is very, very critical when it comes to a commitment to excellence. Excellence is kind of a broad word, but details matter. So for a hockey team, when the defenseman's going into the corner to retrieve that puck, did he make a head check, and did he position his body to take the check of the oncoming forward that's trying to tear his head off. When he gets the puck, did he make the right move? Did he go over to his D partner? Did he go up the boards? Did he just throw the puck away? All those tiny little details matter. So if you want to have a good breakout, get the puck out of the zone effectively so your team can try to score, you need to break it down into little elements and details and pay attention to those details if you want to have an excellent hockey team and an excellent outcome. Finally, a focus on process over outcomes. There's 22 other teams in the Western Hockey League, all with a bunch of very smart hockey guys. Every single one of those teams is desperate to win a championship. I'm as desperate to win a championship for the Tri-City Americans, one of two teams in the Western Hockey League, and we're an original team since 1966, even though we just got to the Tri-Cities in the late 1980s, but we're one of only two never to win a championship. I'm determined to try and change that, but I can't just say, hey, our strategy is to win. No, we have to focus on the process, all the processes that get us there, that make us excellent. And then over time, hopefully the winning will take care of itself. I meant to do this in 15 minutes. I think it was 20. I apologize.
No, you're fine, John.
Okay, all right.
All right, you can click her over to Cindy.
Was excellent and very in line with how I try to run my company. So Cindy Goulet, I have 3 restaurants. In the summer, we employ about 140 people. Lots of wheels, lots of things going on. We've learned that hiring and retention takes strong managers, serious training, clear systems, high expectations, and managers willing to deal with problems quickly. Today, I'll share some of the things that have worked for us and why keeping the wrong person can sometimes cost you the right people. So let's see. Let us start with the mistakes many make. Accepting constant turnover is normal. Constant churn costs money. Everybody knows that, but it costs more than that. It's all the managers, all the time it takes for them to interview, hire, train. It's your customers that really, get the brunt of it because you're constantly have new employees that just don't really know exactly what's going on. So my whole focus is strong training First, it was strong managers and then developing strong training programs. So I have 3 managers. They came kind of from all different most came up from my organization, but some have really strong management backgrounds. One had really none, but she had a personality that I knew she could learn how to be a manager. So it didn't necessarily matter how your background was. You have to be a manager that's willing, first of all, no different than what he said, that's willing to jump in and believe what your restaurant's about. And then my whole thing is we react quickly to things. We don't let Joe over here do something wrong night after night, or really even table after table. Our job is to make sure they were trained well, and then make sure that they're changing what they're doing as soon as possible. So I kind of got off script, but it's something I can talk pretty freely about because it's taken many years to understand for myself to go, okay, sometimes it's not always the employee. Maybe your system is wrong. Maybe your training is wrong. So finding managers that I collaborate with a lot, when you talk about your assistant managers, talking to the GMs, we meet weekly. They all 3 of them run their restaurants. When they have employee issues, I'm fairly strong manager, and so they a lot of times have to talk me off the ledge on things and go, no, I think this is what we can do. We can fix this. However, they've learned our culture, which is we aim to be better every single day and really be the best. Your strongest employees, though, they get tired of covering churn and change. And then all of a sudden you have this whole group of people that may not be as good as you could be as a whole. 3 practices that break this cycle. Hire carefully. Build people and protect the culture. So hire carefully. Look for behavior, not polish. This is just so true. I mean, it's sort of like personality as well, right? First of all, you want somebody who's willing to train, willing to come in and learn something new. And I could give you an example of a bartender that's worked at 20 different bars and knows every drink by heart. That doesn't necessarily mean they're doing it the way we want to do it, right? So that's great. He has the experience, but are you willing to come in and make that drink how we want that drink made? And so I think you find that when you talk to people and interview people by asking them what they have done, not what they're going to do. So tell me a time when you worked for somebody and you didn't do it that way, but they insisted that you did. How was that change? And what you're really looking for is who are they blaming? Are they going, I changed, I'm willing to listen to new training programs? Or are they saying, oh, the management there was terrible? That is a red flag to anyone who's in management when you hire somebody. Oh, management over there are terrible. Okay, that's a big red flag. I'm totally getting off script. Anyway, so there goes the behavior. Just like I said, just remember that. And you know, I've fallen in the trap so many times where I've brought people in and I just know I love them. I love what they have on their resume. It's loaded and love their background. But I really didn't ask them the right questions, right? I didn't ask them what they, how did they handle who was their worst customer? And how did you handle it? What happened after that? I mean, those are questions that really give you insight into people's personality and behavior. And that's interview for evidence. Tell me about a manager, or how a manager corrected you. How did you respond? Past behavior tells you more than rehearsed answers. All of us have I haven't had a lot of job interviews in the last few years, but most have. So you know what the answers to all the common questions are. As myself, what I'm looking for is deeper than that. Like, are they going, when you talked about culture and you're sitting here describing it, I'm like, your company's no different than mine.
No.
That culture comes from me. I know that. When I walk in the restaurants, in which I touch most of my restaurants every single day, and they know what I expect, and I have no problem going, what's going on over here? When you're in it long enough, you can look around and go, something's going on over there. So I don't have a problem with that. However, you have to make sure you're the opposite as well. When it's really well run, when it's amazing, when you have people come up to you and tell you about an amazing experience, very much make sure my managers and my employees know that. And I do tell them that a lot. And team player. The team player, you talked about that. As much as we have like servers and bartenders and a lot of them really are in it for themselves, the whole thing works really well when you've got some team playing going on. We're not looking for perfect people. We're looking for people who can learn, respond to coaching, and contribute to the team. Once we hire someone, though, responsibility shifts to us. So training is a retention tool. Now, this is our investment in that employee. So show it, practice, observe, coach, and follow up. And that is what we do. So we have a fairly extensive training program that's grown over the years because I've grown. When I was one little tiny restaurant, I was all of those things, right? Which I'm sure some of you have been in situations or maybe in those now. So I was all of those things, but I always knew if I was going to be successful, I had to get there. I had to get this training program. I had to make sure recipes are followed and systems are followed and constantly find the right people that are willing to work with me and do that. Training new employees, we take the role seriously and we'll invest time in helping them meet the standards. High expectations with strong training creates confidence. So training teaches the standards, systems make the standard repeatable. Consistency should not depend on which manager is working. So I think that's why it should be more written down. And I think I thought about this a little bit. You know how when you were younger, you'd sit in a circle and there'd be 5 or 6 of you and somebody would tell this person a secret and it was almost a game. And then they'd go around and that secret would be repeated. And by the time it got back to you, it was not at all the secret that you were talking about. Well, that same sort of thing applies in managing by just talking to people going, now you should do this, you should do this. Always that works. However, making sure there's a standard to it is how to make it successful. Consistency and making it repeatable. If several good employees are struggling with the same task and the process may be unclear. So sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes it's our fault. Like, why does that keep happening? What can we do so that they understand that better? That's an important one that we look at all the time as well. And then systems should make working easier to execute. It's not just putting rules and lists on top of rules and lists. That's something that can get out of hand. And then what happens is it just doesn't get done. So we're big into checklists. We're big into closing out. And a lot of it really comes from me just looking at what chains do well. And that's how they succeed. That's how they can have a restaurant in New York and a restaurant in LA. And so systems are a big part of it. Managers set the standard every day. Employees experience your company through their direct manager. Again, culture is all part of it. It's like, what do you want? You know, when I go in, I do not come up to me and I go, hey, how's it going? It's going. And I always comment. I'm like, if that's your answer, I'm not going to ask you anymore how it's going. That's not what I want to hear. And it does work though, because nothing is more of a downer than here's the boss walking in. So I try to be that positive, upbeat person. Everybody in there has big lives that they live. A lot of them have lots of trouble and problems. And I want to be that positive reinforcement, like, oh, at least I'm at work now and I can go from there. So managers do set the standard. I have really strong managers right now. So I feel like right now it's working. It's all working. But training systems and coaching do not work with everyone. And I think that's something that I have had to learn and then teach my employees as well. Again, go back to the person that you just really liked. You're like, I just know they're going to be great and they're not. Okay, now what do you do? Well, doing nothing is the wrong answer, right? Doing nothing, then everybody just comes down to that level. So the change has to be made. And again, that's a manager or an owner, but you have to make a change. If you want to keep the caliber and the level of your people and the hardworking top up, you cannot let these people just not do their job. And it's a big one actually, because it's hard. It's hard to tell people they're fired or they're not doing their job, or it's a lot easier just to go, okay. Hey, John, can you go over and clear that table for them? It's a hard one, but again, it's something I've learned over the years. So what should you do? if I could give you 3 changes this week for you all that are in any kind of this situation, is, I'd improve one interview question. I'd make it about what you have done instead of about what you would do. Like, am I behind? Here we go. I think this is the last one. And then I would, improve part of your training. Pick a task employees struggle with and decide how you will demonstrate it, observe it, and follow up. And third, address one problem. Excuse me, you've been avoiding. Did I do
I
that?
found the slide.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
there's me.
There we go. Address one problem you've been avoiding. At the beginning, okay, address one, have the conversation, clarify the standard, and decide what happens next. So hire carefully, build people, protect the culture. You cannot build a high standard culture by tolerating low standard behavior. So.
That's great.
It's Dawn. He says he's done this several times, and I don't ever do this. So thank you for bearing with me.
Fantastic. Let's open it up to questions to the room. Who has a question for our speakers? While you guys are thinking, I don't see any hands raised immediately, so we do have a question on Zoom. Cindy, I think this is to you, but John, I want to hear your responses too. What are some of the best interview questions to help identify that behavioral style you were talking about? And is there a way to spot fake responses?
Well, for me, it's say it's a server. Then my question, of course, would be, tell me about the most difficult customer you ever had. How was that handled? Do a management one as well. Tell me about a manager that you did not get along with. How did you navigate that? I think if you ask enough questions, it's fairly easy to uncover whether they're being truthful or not. Yeah.
John, how about you? Do you have any questions like this you asked?
Well, I'm probably not the world's best interviewer. When throughout my career, when I was hiring people, I always wanted to find someone who was specifically interested in wanting the specific job that we had available. Now, it might be a little bit tough in your, maybe there are people out there who I want to be a server and I want to work at a great restaurant that, I'm sure there are people like that want to be. So, if I was in the restaurant business, I think I would try and find people that they actually want to be a server, or just, hey, I want to wash dishes in the back, I enjoy just the sense of accomplishment, getting the dishes washed. But what I've always looked for is try to find someone who actually aspires to do the job that you're hiring for.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Christopher.
Hey, John, I have a question for you, and it kind of it's related to your culture specifically, because I think you have I guess it's a difference than what Cindy has. And my question is around, all sports are based on numbers, so I'm just curious how you treat statistics as it relates to your players, because what if someone's not observing your culture, but they're like playing really good ice? Or someone's not doing really good on the ice, but they're like exemplary with culture. And I hearken to that movie Moneyball, right? Where it's like, and so there's like this fine line, and I'm just curious how you handle that. Because Cindy there's no goals for like, you know what I mean? There's no like, so she has feeling and tickets and, but it's very specific to that. So I'm just curious how you handle stats as a part of your culture measurement.
So I'm guessing that most of you aren't rabid hockey fans. Maybe a few of you are, but that question actually is a very big, pertinent, and controversial topic in hockey right now. It has been for the last couple of years. And the question is, because there's, if you're a casual fan, you don't realize this, but behind the scenes, there's massive amounts of statistical data around the sport of hockey. You mentioned Moneyball, that was, I guess, the Oakland A's, and baseball. Baseball, every play is very discrete. There's a pitch and something happens, and it's very easy to kind of document and form statistical conclusions. Whereas a sport like hockey, it's just, it happens so fast and there's so many things happening at once. But that being said, I'll just real quickly, sorry, I'll get to your question, but there's companies now that pay people in Kazakhstan $2 an hour to watch our games in slow motion and to put tags on the screen for all this little stuff. It takes them about 3 or 4 hours to watch the video of the game and put all these tags on. And from there, it's amazing the statistics you get. It's totally amazing. Now, and there's a big there's controversy within hockey as to whether numbers and statistics are a useful tool as a management tool in evaluating and changing and driving performance. There are some NHL teams that have geeked out on the top end of that and have huge statistics departments. There are other general managers that say, I know what I see. I don't need any of those numbers. I know what's happening. I don't need any statistics. My own sense is that within hockey, stats aren't as, they don't provide as much actionable intelligence as they might in some of the other sports. But they do provide some information. From the standpoint of the Tri-City Americans, it's going to take many years to turn around our organization. Both the hockey side, we've had the second worst performing team over the last 8 years in the entire league. Now, in fairness to the current GM, the 8 previous years prior to that, we had like the second best performing team from like 8 to 2016. But our organization essentially doesn't use statistics at all. I started getting exposed to them last year after I bought the team, and I geek out on them myself. But to answer your question, our organization has yet to really incorporate using statistics to help drive change and performance. And even at the NHL level, there are teams that say, screw statistics, we don't need them. So some teams embrace it, some don't. We haven't even tried yet. Sorry for the long answer.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe broaden that question though and see what Cindy thinks as far as when it is that employee does bring really positive energy and contribute to your culture, but not necessarily delivering on maybe as much measurables, right? Or they're not necessarily meeting those metrics, but they bring that culture side. So I guess where does that stand? Do you continue investing to get them there, or maybe they are just that B player, but they're also delivering on the culture? I guess what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's 2 ways. If the person is excellent, but is just horrible to work around and be around, that's the bad apple syndrome. And as painful as it is, that person needs to go. On the other side, like the B players, yeah, we'll find a spot for them because they're loyal. They're following our system and our structure. They may not be able to take the party of 20, but they can do really well in a certain. And so I think that's what our GMs are really good at too, going, okay, John is really good at this. So that's where we're going to keep him. And it kind of depends. I mean, that's where I would stick with that. The attitude, that's the painful one because they're just your top. But boy, makes it pretty miserable when you're the other 25 people working that shift. And that is a hard one, but needs to be dealt with. But I think there's a lot of B players that you need on your team to fill in those spots, actually.
Anyone? Oh, let's go to,
Right.
yeah, sure. So you guys both talked about processes over outcomes and how you basically view success. But both of you are kind of driven, or you're in industries where outcomes are very important, right? So how deeply do you then dive into, hey, we like our process, it's worked, it's working, we're evolving with times. we're just not getting the outcomes that we want. How deep do you go into that to reevaluate either your process or to just disregard the outcomes?
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay, I'll start. So with the Tri-City Americans, we've been struggling over the last few years. And the first thing I try to do is figure out why. And it, at the 60,000 foot level, in 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, we didn't do a very good job drafting. The way it works in junior hockey is 14-year-old boys are drafted. All 23 teams in the Western Hockey League have access to the same pool of people, players. Every May there's a draft. And with the benefit of several years of hindsight, you can go back and look, well, who did the Tri-City Americans draft in 2018? How many of those became impact players? How many never made the team or never made the league? And collectively, the Tri-City Americans did worse than almost every other team in the Western Hockey League, which explains why we've been one of the lower performing organizations. So how we evaluate players and draft players is critically important. And I think at least over the last year or two, I'm cautiously optimistic that we've got a pretty good group of young players. But it starts with, we let our head scout go recently and brought in someone new who just changed the entire evaluation criteria for players, and it did a lot of training and coaching with all of our scouts. We have about a dozen scouts. These are part-time people that have other jobs and careers, but they love to spend their weekends in Regina, Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Vancouver, British Columbia, and all over Canada and Western United States. Every single weekend it's going watching 14-year-old boys play hockey and then writing up reports and filling out checklists. So for us, it really kind of, on the process side, it really started with scouting and our evaluation criteria and what we're looking for, and just getting it into the weeds on the scouting. That's where we started.
Well, I think we have to have the outcome, because we just are in such a fierce industry. So if it's not working, then that's me. And so we have done a lot. Again, as we've grown, I've chose to reinvest in training programs and in these systems. And, it takes a long time before you know if it's paid off or not, actually. But the last one we just finished because we went with a company out of California that we did some online training, which is the first time we've ever done that. So we'll see. I mean, I loved it. I think it was effective. So we'll see how, but you can't be afraid to make change, whether it's the scout or the, whatever process you're doing. That I would just say that when you're just, bumbling along, you're probably not as successful as it could be. Yeah.
A lot of what you guys see, everyone can see, right? They can look at the newspaper and see the standings. They can look how busy are your restaurants, how full is your parking lot, what does that look like, that type of thing. So if you guys are like, yep, nope, we're good. It's like crazy. So, no. It is, because ultimately it's going to change, right?
Yeah.
Just stick to it.
Yeah.
Good one. Yeah, go ahead.
Can both of you share a time in your current organizations where you had to do a hard pivot from what you thought you were doing so good at, why isn't this working? And then kind of describe how that went without being too descriptive, because we're all from here, we're like, I know her. She is the problem, she's the problem.
Want me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
I definitely have.
Through a bunch.
I had the contract at the Pasco Airport for 18 years. And through that, owned a restaurant, built a gift shop, built a bar, built a coffee bar throughout it. So I just grew and grew as the airport grew. Well, in 2014, they decided that they were going to redo the entire airport and put my contract basically out to bid. And I didn't like what was required of me, so they gave that contract to someone else. However, and it was tough, this went over 2 years. 2 years, and I was just like, that's it, I'm done. I'm out of this industry, right? Well, I had like 5 years left on this contract. Well, they had to pay me. Which again, I was a little bit naive at the beginning, but then at the end, I'm like, well, they had to buy me out. Well, when this was all going on, my husband's a contractor. He was remodeling the chief of police for Richland's house. And he's like, hey, you guys should look at that property down by Anthony's. The city of Richland's gonna do a long-term lease on it. And so we put a request for proposal on that. Port of Pasco, because of my lease, had to pay. It was a complete left turn. And of course, the best decision in my entire life, but painful, oh my God. So painful. Anyway. Thank you.
I'm trying to think of examples about pivoting. I sort of talked about, we had to fire our head scout because we weren't, our scouting clearly just demonstrably, just looking back at, 2018, 2019, 20, 21, 22, the players that we selected and how many players we took in the second round of the draft that just never played in the Western Hockey League. But just maybe just sort of a general answer is just around, if you don't have the right people in the right seats, and you made this point, it's difficult and it's hard, but you've got to make a change. You just simply have to. And in my previous career in the tech industry, it was so hard for me when I was in my 30s in leadership roles to fire people. I hated it. But you have to develop some thick skin, and you have to realize that the goals of the organization, supersede the feelings of the person you're dealing with. And you just have to be able to make tough choices and act on those, even if it's not fun and difficult.
There's that saying, what is it? You do what you've always done, you get what you've always got. And I've used that, I'm talking to myself a lot through my life. So it's a really good one because you can look at your business and go, okay, if I don't make a change, nothing's going to change. And yeah, you're a prime example. Me too. I've had to do that many times. So
we have a Zoom question. How do you correct someone and keep them motivated in the same conversation?
Delivery. I think that's where your systems and your training can play in, because it's not what I think. It's like, okay, these are the steps of service. This is what's going on. And if they're strong performers, they generally will, we definitely have some that, we have chefs, and chefs are a funny lot. They very proud of themselves. And so they're a little more delicate probably to talk to about something. But I do think if you stick to your systems and stick to your training and not make it personal, that's a big one. Not make it personal. Like why are you coming after me? Instead of, this is how it's done every day by everybody, or this is our expectation.
We've all had to deal with, employees that have issues, but if it's an otherwise good employee who otherwise does a good job, but there's an area of deficiency, I always find it's best to kind of start with kind of with a compliment and point out some of the good things they do. But then kind of pivot and be very specific with the criticism. So it's not just general and broad and Jimmy, you're not very good at this or just something very, didn't come up with a good example, but just something be very specific about the issue that you're addressing with them. But first point out all the good things they do, and then just say, however, I really do need you to work on these specific things and be specific about it.
Another question from the room. Dan, go ahead.
Can you guys each name a book that positively impacted you when you're kind of like building this process and all that? Anything good?
I haven't read a book in 20 years. Peter Drucker, good to great. Peter Drucker, good to great. And that was in the 80s when I used to read books. Yeah.
You know what, I'm gonna go home and go, damn it. I knew the answer to this, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. However, my entire Instagram feed and Facebook feed is all about motivate. It's either a recipe or it's motivation or business inspired. So I do try to learn a lot every single day. My industry is a nutty industry, and boy, you just cannot rest on your laurels or you're just not gonna make it. So I just read something the other day on one of my feeds from the National Restaurant Association. 42% of restaurants, 42% in the nation, make zero income.
Wow.
42%, 4 out of 10. And I'm like, I see it, I know. I mean, there's just a love and a passion for the industry, but you have to kind of be on your toes if you're gonna make it work.
Cindy, question for you. How do you bridge the cultural gap between the front of house and back of house staff to create one unified team? You were talking about chefs being a little goofy. How do we make them get along with the servers?
Yeah, you know, interesting, because I always worked in a restaurant where the front and the back communicated, integrated with each other because there were smaller restaurants. So when I opened Lulu and I brought in a GM who worked for me for 7 years and was instrumental in getting it off the ground, he came from a big environment and they were two completely different organizations. There was a front of the house and the back of the house. I hated it. It made no sense to me. So I spent a lot of time changing that and through culture, really. Because part of me, I probably side with the back of the house more than the front, because I've spent so much time in both. But I think it's respect for what the other person is doing. And when they're not you know, even more now so than in the beginning, people aren't very tolerable of being disrespectful.
Yeah.
You know, they don't like being yelled at. They don't like being disrespected. So again, it goes back to culture, what you allow and what you don't allow. Yeah.
Also probably collaboration as well. We sort of, even in hockey, we have front of the house, back of the house. We have the hockey side of the business and the business side of the business. The hockey side, all they focus on is hockey, hockey, hockey. But they have to realize that if we don't have fans on the door, if we don't have sponsors, if we don't have revenue, we don't have a hockey team. Right. So what I've tried to do is to really get our difficult, but our GM to be more collaborative on the business side, just with, if nothing else, just a weekly meeting, which is mostly a business focused meeting, that the hockey guy has to understand what are some of the business things that are going on. Because we often need on the business side, we need support from the hockey side. For example, we need, players available to do appearances and do stuff for our sponsors, and by having just a weekly meeting, keeps kind of everyone on the same page and reminds the hockey side of the house that the business, without the business side, there wouldn't be a hockey side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely. John, how do you build a resilient culture that can bounce back quickly from a tough loss or a bad season without losing morale?
I haven't gone back to validate this, but I believe that the Tri-City Americans last season suffered the most apocalyptic collapse in the history of the Western Hockey League. At the end of January, we were 3 or 4 games up on a playoff spot. And then at the end of January, we lost 21 out of our final 22 games. So we are right in the middle of that right now. I think with just like with all sports and junior hockey, there's so much turnover and everything's happened so fast. Hope does spring eternal. In our case, I guess there's probably no diehard Americans fans here, but I will say there are a couple players that maybe last year were not good cultural fits in our locker room that are not going to be back. And there's at least two such players that, you know, nobody knows they're not going to be back, but they're not. In junior hockey, you just keep plowing forward. I mean, we had a big collapse last year, but I'm very optimistic where we sit. I'm pretty sure we're not just going to make the playoffs. I think we're going to be one of the top 4 teams and have home ice advantage this year. You put it behind you shake it off, and you come back next year and you keep on fighting.
Yeah, that must be tough when you're dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-old boys.
It is tough. Last year it was our older players, the 19 and 20-year-olds that really maybe didn't have the character that we look for, didn't really fit kind of the profile of what over the long term we're going to be looking for in terms of resilience, competitiveness, compete, and over time that'll change.
Questions in the room? Anybody?
Yeah.
John, go ahead.
I have a question about employee feedback and how that kind of fits. Can you talk a little bit about how employee feedback fits into the vision of your organizations and your approach to culture?
Sure. I think it's really important. And, you know, as I grew, it became a little more difficult. But, you know, I have 3 women that work for me in the kitchen at Lulu that have been with me for 27 years. Wow. And they came over. Now talk about culture, because remember, this is a big kitchen, and I had a manager, a GM that was like, no, these guys have to be professionals. And so they were all men, and these girls come in. Well, I mean, the joke was that they were not fireable because they came from all of my restaurants. Well, they're my most loyal. And what I loved most about them is that, like, if I came in and there's always squirrely things going on in restaurants. But I mean, they had my back. They would have no problem coming up to me and going, you know what, I think this is going on. And so that was a great start. Since then, of course, I have several employees that I trust implicitly. And they can, it might be a little much to say they're going to come up to me. I have the privilege of my daughter has worked with me for 10 years. I also graduated from WSU in hospitality. And she's the director of operations. So she's much more, she knows a lot of those employees better than I do. So they would be able to come up to her and talk about, things. Sometimes you have to be careful though, because sometimes it's just how that manager operates. And so not everything is a fire, I guess. Sometimes the server, who might be an excellent server, just doesn't like the way the manager manages. So then that becomes more of a personal issue. But yeah, definitely. I don't think you can run a business or an organization without looking around at your strongest, and when they have something to say, listening to them. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we do, especially in the summer, just to give you an example, every single week we have a meeting, and it's only the business staff because the hockey staff is gone in the summer. But as an example, we had a meeting right after the season ended to talk about what music we play at the games. Fan experience is huge. And before I got here, I mean, it was pretty much just the hockey game. The lights stayed on between periods. They played some music, but there was always an intermission kind of thing, but there wasn't a whole lot more to really engage the fans. And nobody had really given it a whole lot of thought. And I wanted our team to think about, well, everyone has different tastes in music. Some people like country, some like rock, some like rap, but at least for kind of a generalized audience, what music would be, especially during the intermissions when everyone's just sitting there waiting for the next period. So we got our entire business staff, there was 10 people, talking about, you know, what genres and what our strategy should be, and we had a whole lot of different opinions. We listened to everybody's opinion, and at the end of the day, you know, I kind of made a decision because it was my job to, and you can't make everybody happy. But what we tried to do was just kind of put together, and because we have time for like, you know, 4 songs each intermission, you know, well, what should those be? And I won't go into all the details of it, but we listened to everybody and we put together kind of a document and a strategy and lists of specific songs. And so anybody who's going to a Tri-City American game this year, the music that they're listening to isn't just random. There was forethought put into it that involved the feedback of, you know, everybody on our business team. Is it the right answer? Is it good music, bad music? Everybody will have their own opinion, but at least we had a collaborative process to think it through.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds like a fun meeting to be at.
It was fun.
Yeah, like that's, your team probably feels great that they were at.
Yes.
It's not just whatever music John Sortland likes.
No, it's trying to appeal to, you know, the most people we can. Yeah.
That's great.
John, I talked to Cindy before the event, if you want an outside opinion on the music choice. Sometimes it's.
You're a DJ.
Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
To be ancillary and talk about it, but if you want a third party objective observer, I'm happy to provide some.
Be glad to talk to them, sure.
All right, do we have any final questions, final thoughts? No?
He had a question for me earlier, or do you still have a question?
What are we gonna do with the Chiefs?
Oh my God, oh man, so it's. I think we're gonna be competitive with them this year, finally, so, they've lost a few of their older guys, last year, I think we were 2-6. Trust me, we would desperately love to beat them, but that's a longer term question. It's all about, you know, I have to make sure we have the right culture, we have the right people, the right processes, so over time we have the best players and can develop a program that is, you know, consistently above average and a winning team year in and year out. We're not always and maybe never going to win a championship, but at least if we can get to a higher level of sustained excellence, maybe one of those years we can win a championship. And at least this year, I hope we beat them more than half the time. I think we will.
John, is there a high benchmark in the sports world that you would like the Americans to be more like? Like, are you a big fan of a team that has a great culture that you're aware of that you like to emulate?
Sure. Well, on the hockey side, at the NHL level, the Carolina Hurricanes. They finally won. They just won the Stanley Cup. But for the last 10 years, they were very, very close. And you know, 8-9 years ago, their roster was totally different than it is today. But throughout that whole time, they had success. They were always, you know, they went deep into the playoffs quite a few times. They were always in the playoffs, always a good regular season team. But they did it with just, I think, kind of a similar culture to, I don't know what their culture document looks like, probably something similar to what we have. And just always recruiting players that just had a relentless compete level, even if their skating wasn't as good, their skill, their hockey IQ, the compete was the number one thing they looked for. And in the Western Hockey League, the Everett Silverchips, who I passionately hate, but that organization has been around since 2004. They've never missed the playoffs. They just won a championship, and it's the same thing. It's culture first and identifying players that have just a compete level that matters. You know, if compete can out trump skill, it can out trump skating, it can out trump a hockey sense, it can out trump size. If you get just players that are relentless with a work ethic that's beyond, you know, way beyond average, that's the recipe for a winning team. So it's going to take us a while to get there.
That's a great answer. Cindy, same question for you, but about restaurants. What are the huge inspirations for you?
Sure, there's a company called Fox Concepts mainly out of Arizona, but Culinary Dropout is like their number one. And they have brought massive inspiration to me. I follow Sam Fox. You know, he's sold many times and he's quite famous in that area for developing really innovative concepts. But yeah, I really like that. I definitely have a lot of inspiration from him and his restaurants.
I love that. Great answer. Final questions, anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
I would say outside the compensation, what's your best recommendation to retain your high performers?
I think that I give them a lot of ability to make decisions. So if that same person, that same management was a manager of a chain, any of our even local chains, they would not have the ability to make change or to do things that my managers do. So they can do, they know me well enough and know our direction and our culture, but they get to make a lot of decisions from hiring, from creating, positions, schedules, everything. So I don't, even though I try to step in my restaurants every day, I don't micromanage the managers. And so sometimes that makes them, that's not a good fit, but the three I have now seems to be a good fit.
Well, compensation is obviously important, but harkening back to my 30 years working for high growth technology startup companies, I always found that the number one factor as to whether I enjoyed my job or not was my relationship with my boss. And if you have a good manager, a good boss, someone who, you know, you have a good rapport with, a good, you know, and they treat you fairly, then work could be great. But in those 30 years, I worked for 6 different companies and I think like 14 different CEOs. 8 or 9 of them were absolutely fantastic. But I remember back 15 years ago, just having I was a CFO working for a CEO and it was awful. And if I did not have a good rapport with my immediate boss, then the job wasn't any fun and it didn't matter how much they paid me. It wasn't worth it. I'm not sure, I'm probably not answering your question, but if you, at least for the Tri-City Americans, I'm trying to build a good culture, I'm trying to, the senior leaders, you know, treat them well, empower them, you know, create a collaborative environment where they can make decisions, feel appreciated. That will, I think, mean just as much as compensation.
Fantastic. Everybody, let's give them a round of applause. Give you a few minutes of your time back. We ended early. John, I told you you had plenty of time. But first, do we have a gift to do the drawing for, or are you guys?
Yes, I'm here early.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Nice and soon.
All right. Well, we're at the end of the program.
Mhm.